So I just want to start off by like getting to know you a little bit. So if you just want to tell me a bit about yourself, how old you are, where you're based, just like a little
Yeah.
background.
Yeah, so I live in Central California. I'm 13 years old. I have four siblings. I come from a really big family, and I have a ton of pets. I love animals. I love basketball. So
Nice. So how long have you been living in Central California?
pretty much my whole life. I moved from New York when I was like 3 or 4. So
Oh, nice. So you're 13. So are you in school right now?
yeah, I go to middle school.
Okay, great. So how do you find it, balancing school with your career?
Well, honestly, it feels like two different worlds. Like last year when I was filming Horizon and I would travel up to Utah to film, then coming back to school always just felt like I was in two separate worlds and no one really knew me at school because it was like my first year at middle school. So it always felt really different, but it was kind of that in a fun way because I kind of had the best of both worlds.
Nice. Yeah. And so, did you always know that you wanted to pursue acting? Was this something that like kind of like came more recently, or is this like a sort of a childhood goal?
It was definitely more of a childhood goal. I mean, I'd always done theater. I've done theater for what, 10 years now. So I always thought that I was going to be like big on Broadway or something like that. But then when COVID happened and all the theaters shut down, all my local theaters, then I got into film acting and I was like, wow, this could be really cool. So I signed up for an acting class and everything just went from there.
That's so great. And so, what are some of the differences that you've noticed between sort of more theatrical acting versus on-camera work?
I think that on camera work, you really have to be more calm and more
Mm.
grounded. Because I think that you tell the story with much more of your face and how you express yourself and all the words you mean. But then in theater, you really have to be like big and show all the audience members, even the ones in the back, is what my local theater used to say. Everyone needs to get the story equally. And so it makes for a lot more, like movement.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
makes
That's a
sense.
great answer. So what in your eyes has been your biggest accomplishment in your career thus far?
That's a good question. I think that I think that my biggest accomplishment is probably the fact that I'm able to balance being a normal teen
Mm.
with being an actress. I always worried that I wouldn't be able to like go to college or, pursue my other passions, but I think that's something I'm doing a really good job at because, as I said, I get to experience kind of the best of both worlds and I get to still hang out with my family a lot, but then also do a lot of acting. So that's
Mm.
something I'm really proud of.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's something you definitely should be proud of because I'm sure it's a difficult balance, but it seems like you're doing a great job of it. And so sort of going off of that, has there been any challenges that you've faced in your career thus far, either, in balancing school and life and career or any other kind of challenges, just sort of like in the nitty-gritty of the acting world?
Yeah, I think that honestly, one of the biggest challenges is the fact that going from theater to film was a really, really big change.
Mm.
The first year or so that I was in film acting, I think that a lot of the time I would overexpress myself and like, just be way over the top when really I just had to pull it down a lot. And because that's what makes acting so emotional, is just having that numb sort of face when you say your lines and expressing yourself in a much more calm and emotional way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. And sort of like, have you found that you have like a support system that helps you through career challenges, like either like with friends or family or your agent or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, my parents, most honestly, my parents have been the most supportive people this whole time. They've always been there to take me to all the auditions in person. My mom's been here to help me set up this background, these lights, and they help me memorize for auditions. My dad brings me everywhere when I'm filming. So I think that that's something that a lot of people don't have, which I feel really grateful to have. And yeah, it really helps me, reassures me to know that I have such supportive people.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up auditions. Like what's sort of like your procedure for getting ready for an audition? How do you keep yourself calm and, kind of cut down on any nerves going into an audition?
Going into an audition. So I would say that at least 2 hours prior to the audition, I start really looking at the lines and the sides. And that's kind of my time where I like fully get into the character and just, decide what their background is, decide how I want to portray certain parts, make some bold decisions to make myself stand out for the casting director. And yeah, I mean, then after 2 hours of just going over and I kind of just read the sides over and over again. That's what helps me memorize them. It's just almost like a conversation. I just read it over and over, and usually it just clicks. But after that, my mom helps me with my hair and makeup because I'm not that good at it yet. But then, yeah, I get set up. I usually have a coach to help me with my auditions, and yeah, submit and
Nice.
forget it.
Yeah, awesome. And so kind of like going forward in time, like after the audition, once you have the role and are on set, after a long day on set, how do you like to unwind and sort of like decompress and take yourself out of that character and get back to being Georgia?
Honestly, something that I really love doing after set is just calling my family, calling my sisters, especially when I was in Utah filming Horizon, because there wasn't really a time difference. I think it's just 1 hour. I would just call my siblings. They usually have been home from school for about a few hours, and I would just like either play video games with them or just like talk to them about my day, hear about theirs, and it really doesn't feel like anything's changed there that I left it all. Just kind of, we've both had 2 different days. We're sharing them now, and we're connecting again like we used to at home.
Yeah.
I go back and it feels like I never really left.
So do you have like a favorite role you've played or any project that you've worked on that really stands out and kind of like why was it your favorite?
I mean, I haven't done that many projects yet, but I think that the two most recent ones that I've done were called Roswell Delirium and Horizon. And they were both really, really fun and they were both really, really different was the fun part. The first one, there were so many kids that this was Roswell Delirium. There were so many kids we would be making TikToks. It was so much fun and it was just so light and easy. And it was just something that I could really enjoy and yeah, have fun with. But then Horizon was a lot harder. I mean, I was doing stunts back to back, and I was working with many, many seasoned adult actors. So it was definitely, I could learn from them, and it felt a lot different, but they were both fun for different reasons.
Yeah, totally. And so like, working on both Horizon and Roswell Delirium, like with those being such different projects and kind of like different set environments, like did you find yourself sort of having to like change your mindset going into each project? Like was there sort of like a transition between like your process for Roswell Delirium versus your process for Horizon?
Yeah, I mean, the characters themselves were really, really different. So that was pretty easy to put myself in the two different headspaces because my character Lynn in Roswell Delirium was so much different, had such a different personality than my character in Horizon, Elizabeth. But I think that the biggest difference it felt like was I filmed Roswell Delirium in Burbank, which is really close to where I live. So it didn't feel that different. And it didn't feel like I was in like a whole separate world or environment. But in Utah, I was just like, wow, I'm here filming a movie. It's really crazy. So that definitely felt a lot different. And so I was able to kind of put myself in different headspaces pretty easily. They felt different.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And do you find yourself kind of preferring playing characters that are more similar to yourself or more different? Like kind of like what's more fun for you? What sort of works better with your artistic process?
So I think that going forward, I really want to continue playing the more Elizabeth type character because she's so strong and she's kind of like, I don't know if I can say badass, but she's just such a cool like hero character. She's like a really big protagonist. I love the way that she has overcome her struggles and she's coming out so strong and such a different person. She's being shaped into like this stronger, more mature person for her family from all the trauma that she's been through. So I think it'd be really cool to like continue on that path kind of and continue playing like almost the really strong superhero badass type characters.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like Bailey's joining us.
Cool.
And so kind of going off of that, like I want to hear a little bit more about what drew you to the role of Elizabeth when you were auditioning. You know, like did you kind of recognize that strength in that character immediately, or is that something that you sort of like kind of like had to bring out in the role?
Well, that's a good question. On set, then I took a lot of my inspiration from Sienna.
Mhm.
Sienna is like the most amazing actress. Like she was phenomenal. I feel like I was always like taking some pointers from her and trying to like be as good as she was. So she would always be kind of my role model. And so when I was doing the really cool stunts, it was really cool that she was always there with me. Like when we were buried underground, you'll see that soon. Then we were both under there and we were both going through it, and she was walking me through it. So it always felt like I had someone.
Yeah, totally. And so, like, going off of that, like, what was it like working with such a star-studded cast? I mean, did you receive like any valuable advice that you want to share, or like, was it intimidating at all?
Yeah, I mean, going into it, I didn't really know who anyone was. I was only like 11 at the time, I think.
Right.
I only had a week between booking the role and having to be there for my first day on set. So I didn't really know who anyone was going into it, which was probably pretty good because I wasn't really that nervous. But yeah, looking back now, something that I learned was that the script is really just a guide, and that every actor brings their own emotional depth and their own thoughts and ideas into the character. And it really makes for such a more emotional movie and a more emotional character that just has a lot of depth to them. Like the character doesn't start in the movie. The character has so much that they've gone through to get to that point. So every step they take, every sigh, it's really meaningful.
Yeah, totally. Do you have like any favorite on-set memories from filming Horizon?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this probably wasn't very convenient for the set crew or anything. But something that was always really fun was that whenever a squall, I think they called it in Utah, a squall is like a storm that just happens. Whenever one of those would blow in, and then we'd always have to like take cover in the vans and like all miners to the vans. And all the set, we would just watch different parts like blow away. We'd be just like, oh gosh. And we'd be on hold like an hour as they rebuilt it, and the squall would just blow by and everyone would taking videos and stuff. It was really chaotic. But I'd just be playing Mario Kart in the van, just like, oh gosh, this might be a while.
Oh my gosh.
But that was,
Wow.
yeah, kind of chaotic, but also super fun looking back for me, at least.
Totally. So is there anything about Horizon that you think is going to surprise audiences?
And surprise audiences. I mean, I think that this time and the things that were happening in Horizon, none of it was recorded in history books. Nobody really knows that any of this stuff happened in our past. And so I think it's such an important story to tell for people to fully understand what shaped America and what shaped who they are today, what shaped the past. So I think that's going to be really surprising to just realize that everything that's happening, everything was kind of true. And even though it's brutal, it's also really important to know that. So I think that's going to be surprising.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, is there anything in particular about the film that you feel most proud of, like in the work that you did?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just the stunts were insane. I had to be buried underground, breathing through the barrel of a gun, which is seen in the trailer. So that was pretty much all real. Like there was a really long dirt tunnel that I had to crawl through on all fours with knee pads. And there was a hole in the ground in the middle of Utah that I had to be underground with Sienna in. So it was all pretty real and it was all scary, but it was also really cool. And looking back, it was really cool. You can see in the movie and everything, it's like, wow.
Yeah, wow. So like doing all that stunt stuff, I mean, do you see yourself in the future wanting to do more roles that include stunts, or was that sort of like something where you're like, wow, so cool, never want to do it again?
Honestly, I think that one of the projects I'd really love to work on the most would be like a really cool action movie, like a superhero movie or something. I could do all my own stunts and like, Tom Cruise style. It'd be really fun, actually.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, kind of going off of that, like what is sort of what you see is like what's next for you? I mean, do you have like a dream role that you would want to do in the future? Any kind of things that you're just sort of excited about to explore as time goes on?
Yeah, I mean, I really want to try to explore all the different genres. I had a small part in a horror movie, a part in a sci-fi movie, and now a part in a Western movie. I want to try to dig into all the other genres too, and just kind of explore everything, see where my passion lies, and yeah, just kind of pave my path for my career.
Yeah, totally. And so, I mean, sci-fi, Western horror, do you find yourself like having a different process getting into character based on the genre, or is it kind of like the same for each, just, different context?
I mean, it's pretty actually similar because I think that's really important for every character to have their own depth and their own backstory before the movie even starts. So I like to first begin with that and just be like, how is this character, why is this character who she is? And why does this character behave the way that they do? And so I think that that really helps me get into character. It really helps me kind of shape who like I'm going to be portraying in the movie. And yeah, it really helps me to express that character.
Totally. Yeah, that's awesome. And, how do you kind of like stay motivated and inspired? I mean, what keeps you going? Like, especially, working long hours, being away from family, being away from home. What keeps you wanting to go down this career path?
Yeah, I think that the most motivating thing for me is just knowing that every time I'm making a movie, I'm making something that's going to outlive me, and that my kids and my grandkids will all be able to watch when I'm old and I'm not in the business anymore. But I think it'll be really cool to make something that's going to leave an impact on the world and on someone, and that will continue to do that even long after I'm gone and long after everything has happened and that movie was in its prime, people will still be able to watch it. It will still make them feel something. And so I think that that's really cool. And that's kind of why I am an actor. I think that's really cool to be able to do that.
Yeah, fantastic. I love that answer. That's a great
I
answer.
don't know if it makes sense.
No, it's that's awesome. I really like that. I mean, do you have any advice that you would give to aspiring actors or like any advice that you wish you had received earlier on, when you were younger and kind of just getting started with the theater stuff?
Yeah, I mean, a wise person once told me that in acting, there's going to be a lot of ups and downs that's so unpredictable, and that you could think that you're never going to work again. But then that next opportunity will come, and you'll be like, oh, I never should have doubted myself, you know? And that you kind of just always have to be prepared to think that you're never going to work again, but just know that if you're working hard enough and if you love it enough, then the next opportunity is going to come your way, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, is there anything else you want to share? Anything we didn't touch on that you want to make sure we include when we're writing up this interview?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for,
Thank
one,
you so
joining the
much.
Zoom early. I really appreciate it. And
Okay.
just like giving such awesome, detailed, thoughtful answers. It's been
Oh,
so
I
great
hope
getting to
so.
hear from you. Oh, you absolutely did.
Yes. Thank you.
It was great. But I hope you have a really great rest of your day, and it was so
Oh,
nice
thank
meeting
you, you
you.
too. It was so nice to meet you.